fought the longest war in American history. They fought the longest war in American history. In 1965, Vietnam seemed like just another foreign war. But it wasn't. It was different in many ways, and so were those who did the fighting. In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19. 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 19.
The heaviest fighting of the past 2 weeks continued today, 25 miles northwest of Saigon.
I wasn't really sure what was going on.
19. 19. 19. 19. 19. Soldier typically served a 12-month tour of duty, but was exposed to hostile fire almost every day. 19. 19. 19.
In Saigon, a U.S. military spokesman said today more than 700 enemy troops were killed last week in that sensitive border area. Throughout all of South Vietnam, the enemy lost a total of 2,689 soldiers.
Nineteen. Yes, indeed. In the week that Celtic extended the lead at the top of the SPL to 19 points, we're back. I say we because we are the artists formerly known as the Homeboys Down Under. We're going to be selecting a new name live on air, hopefully today, in a kind of transparent way to sort of bring you all in to our little venture here. And we're going to be talking about a range of issues today on the show. The show with no name at the minute, but we'll get there. The issues will include how insane you were driven by the game on Tuesday at Perth, the cost of watching Celtic these days, and recent surveys have come out, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But let me first introduce you to our panel, because it's an illustrious one. All the way down there, deep down under, we have the very own Mr. Patrick Close. Hello, Pat.
Good evening, boys. How are we?
Very well, very well. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, because we're worldwide, continental, you name it. And speaking of being continental, all the way down there in Bo'ness, we have the number one man himself, Mr. Josh Gaffney.
Hail, hail, guys.
Are you feeling good today, Josh?
I'm feeling a bit better, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were accusing Mr. Graham Wilson of transmitting some sort of disease to you, weren't you?
Well, I'm not putting out accusations like that out there.
Oh, really? On air, it's a different story. Well, Graham, I hope you've got a good lawyer. But aye, so sorry, Pat.
No, I was going to say, is it sexually transmitted? Is that what sort of disease are we talking here?
Well, Graham had
Comment.
pneumonia. So I don't know what the gaffers got, but yeah, I mean they were alone at several periods last week, so anything's possible.
Enough said, yeah.
Sorry, Pat.
No, I'll say good on you, Josh. You got your haul at last. Good stuff. Good boy. I like it.
Silence from Boness.
No, it's no silence.
There's a cough for effect there. Aye. He must be putting a claim in. He's trying to make us all feel sorry for him.
He's got no sympathy from me, from any of us. It's all right.
No, I mean, I tell you, I would have had sympathy for him, but about 4 weeks ago, he pussy duty drive into Wishaw because he had the most ridiculously pansy football injury known to man, where he kind of hurt his toe a wee bit and all this kind of thing. So all sympathy's gone, Josh. And also, he even had the audacity to send a photo on Twitter, Pat, of his toe, which was just basically a picture of his foot. And
so it could be anybody's foot, basically.
Could have been anything, yeah. Are you going to answer these allegations, Josh? Or are you going to sit mute?
It wasn't a toe injury; it was an ankle injury.
Oh, ankle, right. And so how does that stop you driving exactly?
Well, because I can barely move it.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Barely move it, aye. Oh, dear, I don't know. I mean, it was... it's not often that they allow men to play in women's football matches, though, is it? Oh, dear. Anyway, so... normally at this point, what we would do is we'd talk about the previous game. But being an avid social media follower, I noticed that Mr. Close, along with several thousand others, had major issues regarding the game in terms of watching it on Tuesday, Pat.
Oh, jeez, don't start me there. Am I on my soapbox now, am I?
Yeah,
Is this my turn? Oh, man, what?
Absolutely.
No offence to Celtic TV, but seriously, if anyone is a subscriber, that was just... It was ridiculous from the start. So I know, I don't think the game was on live over there, but in sort of other parts of the world. So I think I saw some pictures that Graham Wilson was posting. I think he was getting stuff through a bit of a dodgy stream, but he was the same as me. He was trying to get stuff through Celtic TV. So essentially, there was no pictures. So everyone in the eastern side of Australia, even in the western side of Australia, are up at crack of dawn, like 3:45, 4:45 in the morning, whatever. To up and watch a game. There's no pictures, just audio. And it's not don't get me wrong, it's not the worst sort of commentary in the world. I mean, it was all right. It was Paul Cuddihy and Tony Hamilton, so it wasn't great, but it's not certainly the worst. Couldn't find a dodgy stream anywhere either. Graham sent us one as well, but couldn't find anything that was working. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So that's all right. I'll watch. I'll get the rerun a bit later, that sort of stuff. So I went and watched the rerun onto Celtic TV. That was all great, but the commentary was in flipping Gaelic. The Gaelic, I couldn't believe. I'm sitting there going, seriously. Now they fixed it now. Don't get me wrong, but they fixed it now. But I was sitting there trying to watch the first half of it. I'm going, and it's just, what it's like. We kind of joke in our family about the Gaelic sort of language, like Hogra Bura Bura St Johnston, and it was just, it was painful. But we got there in the end.
So, I mean, effectively what's happening here is Celtic are basically siphoning the BBC Alba feed to then feed it to people like yourself, Pat, people in America and all that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, that didn't work on Tuesday. So instead, you got to see a picture of McDermott Park and I'll say it, an absolutely horrific commentary between Tony Hamilton and Paul Cuddihy, who... having listened back to what they were saying, did not at any stage take into account the fact that nobody could see what they were talking about. There's a multitude of difference between TV commentary and radio commentary, and that's what they couldn't grasp.
Yeah, there was a couple, they did mention it a couple of times, and that was mentioned on Twitter. The guy, Kenny Mackay, who I was having a bit of banter with him on Twitter, which is kind of funny. He's from Coatbridge, I'm from Airdrie, so there was a bit of banter going on there. So. And he was basically apologising, and I saw a few people write messages to him pretty much saying, well, what's going on? No one's saying anything. You told people after 5 minutes that there was issues. you don't tell somebody then at 45 and 40 or 45 minutes there's issues. You tell them sort of every couple of minutes or every 4 or 5 minutes. Because if I tuned in, I was getting the train to work and I'm sitting in the train trying to get this thing up and running, and because there is an option in Celtic TV to do audio only, and that's what I thought I was defaulting to. I'm going, maybe it's my 3G connection or something like that. I just couldn't. You just don't expect it to be like that. And as you said, all we had was a really flaky picture of McDermott Park, and it's.
The guy Kenny. I mean, this is a guy who replaced Gregor Kerr. I think the guy Kenny's really good, but I have to say I did think he let himself down a bit on Tuesday. And to paraphrase a tweet that was sent to him whilst this was happening, whilst the game was going on, whilst you couldn't see pictures, the tweet to him said, "Gonna stop chatting up birds when we can't see the Celtic game." And that Kenny, whether he's in control of it or no, there's a way to do it, and you're right, it should have been fixed, because when I look back at his tweets later that night and saw what was going on, it was obvious there was never ever going to be a game on. They just really had no concept of the fact that it was actually going to be fixed, because it's either going to be fixed or it's not. And to be going, as you say, still at half time, and we can't see the game, and we can't see the game, we can't see the game. It was an absolute disaster, and it really does. It annoys me, because I know for a cast iron fact that if Celtic TV put more money into it, they would never have these issues, but they don't. And that's despite the influx of money they now get for the North American Federation of Celtic Supporters Clubs, who are all paying in twice to watch Celtic TV through their own systems at home and in their bars, despite the fact, of course, that most Celtic games are now featured live on Fox. So it was a pretty poor show. And so we'll move on to that, because thankfully people at Celtic TV are moving on, so hopefully it'll get better soon.
Well, actually, let me just put this out. Do we actually know how many subscribers there are? I've tried to find this out a couple of times, but I'm really curious to know. I mean, is it like 1,000? Is it 10,000? I'd be curious to know. I think how much money is actually going into this.
I'm going back about maybe 16, 18 months, but the figure at that time was about 3,300. So, but then people, when I was subscribing in America, Pat, and I'm not sure exactly, I was paying the equivalent of about £20 a month for it. Is that roughly what you pay now?
Yeah, there's basically two options. There's a sort of I think they call standard one, and then there's one you get sort of better quality pictures now. In truth, I watch it on a laptop more often than not, so I could easily just pay the basic one. But it's one of these kind of things, like you want to try and support your club a little bit, and for the sake of an extra, for me, just an extra $10 a month or something, I'll pay the extra. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know, it's just kind of my way of. Because it's kind of hard, though. You can't really contribute as much over here as you guys get, going to the games and buying a bit of merchandise whenever you fancy it, or something about the shop. But most Celtic fans and diehards in this neck of the woods, they do something a little bit extra. They'll buy that extra T-shirt, or they'll buy a scarf, or they'll buy something just to kind of support the club, and that's kind of my little way of doing it. Don't get me wrong, I benefit from it because you get a better quality picture, but I don't need to pay it. I can get by on a laptop with the standard one. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing I saw, and this actually did annoy me. This is about, it must have been about a week and a half ago. I don't know if you guys saw it. There was I've got a friend over here, believe it or not, he's a Dumbarton supporter. So I saw this tweet from somebody about a Dumbarton player scoring a goal. Brian, I think it was Prunty, scored a goal against Livingston, overhead kick, and it is truly, honestly, no joke, one of the best goals I've ever seen. Yeah, it was a brilliant goal. And I saw this highlight thing on, it was called Livy TV, so Livingston Television, and it was full high definition stuff. It was brilliant. The quality was you could watch it on a 50-inch screen. The quality was magnificent. Now, I don't get that with Celtic TV. This was it was a 10-minute highlight show of their game. But how can Livingston do this through the Scottish Football League, and yet Celtic TV we get this kind of substandard kind of quality picture? I just don't kind of get that. You think the money would be a bit behind Celtic that they can do it, but Livingston seem to have this better quality, highlights package. Just bizarre.
Yeah, I can actually put in tons of points to come out of that, all good ones. The first point about Livingston is that Livingston have a progressive attitude towards football. They've got a guy on the board who's a fan, David Stoker, who's very progressive in that sense. You can follow him on Twitter, and he's very good. and so on. They've also got a progressive guy running the football side, John Collins, who is looking at it long term and all that kind of thing. And it's absolutely laughable, the service that Celtic are providing. And to your point as well about, wanting to contribute more and stuff like that. I mean, I've been in that position myself, and I witnessed it last week when Graham Wilson came over. And when he went into the Celtic shop, he went in with a kind of, I'll just browse, and left with bags and bags and bags of merchandise, to the point where, and I kid you not, the till actually exploded when he went up. Just melted down because there was so much stuff going through it. The till actually just went into overdrive. And he went back with double the amount of stuff that he came, primarily because he bought stuff for the Celtic shop. And it's because, and it just frightens me. I mean, look, people might not say it, people might not scared of him. Tony Hamilton's not very good at what he does. And, that's one of the reasons I'm absolutely delighted he's not going to be at the club very much longer. Because if Celtic actually, my firm belief is that if Celtic actually brought in someone who knew what they were doing, then the realisation at the top level of the club would come that the people that they have there now have never known what they're doing. And it's disgraceful. I mean, we've talked about this in the past about, like, if you take the MLB, Major League Baseball package in America, I mean, you're basically getting every single game you want in high definition. Any game, whether it's the New York Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers, whoever you support, you can watch them anytime, any place, anywhere for $160 a year. In high definition, every single game. I mean, that just, to me, is just, if that's not the standard bearer, then what is, I mean, Josh, you're the kind of technical Mark Zuckerberg here. Can you tell me why Celtic TV subscribers watch quite often a worse picture than you would if you went on an illegal stream?
Well, some of it might be down to the sort of contractors that Celtic are choosing. They might be going for contractors that have maybe been in the media industry, maybe for like 20 years, 10, 20 years. And perhaps, they just aren't really experienced enough to offer, high definition services because they're still using old technology and so on. Another issue could possibly be like licensing and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure, but you're right. If there's a guy who got into Celtic and knew exactly what he was doing, I'm quite confident that he could bring in a much better product to Celtic fans.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I've already been corrected on the MLB TV, and it's actually worse. MLB TV is actually only $129 a year. And for that, you can watch every game, or you can watch it back on demand. It's all in HD. You get coverage before and after the game, and you can even get it tailored to the team you support. So, in other words, if the New York Yankees were playing the New York Mets and you supported the New York Mets, you can hear a New York Mets commentary on that. And if if you're a masochist or you want to shout and ball at the Yankee pod, you can listen to a Yankee one as well. I mean, we're just being left behind by this. I mean, the thing about it for me, Pat, is that we live in this kind of social media landscape now. That if you're no fast, you're last. Pat,
It's kind of, sorry. It's like a difficult one because, like, if it is only like like if you're talking 3,000 subscribers, so they are on sort of limited kind of budget and stuff like that, and it might sound as if we're being a bit snobby, but when I came here, there was literally no way of even listening to the games, never mind watching them. There's been this sort of progressive thing, and you guess you're kind of thankful for kind of small mercies, that sort of thing, because when I came here, it was, if anyone can remember this, was a thing called IRC, which was essentially a guy listening to Radio Clyde or something back in Scotland, typing commentary that appeared on your screen. He basically typed a bit, hit enter, and it appeared on your screen. So it was basically just text chat. That's how I used to follow games when I first came here. And then it kind of moved a little bit. It lasted. I think you got like some radio stuff for a little while, but that kind of the whole licensing thing came in, and Clyde disappeared, and Radio Scotland disappeared, and again, it's still pretty hard even now to get some of those things. But then, when things like Celtic TV and we talk Setanta over here. So there is Setanta Australia. It's not just the UK firm that died, but it's the ones over here are their own entity. So we kind of get the feed. Well, I'm not a subscriber anymore, but Setanta get the feed off whatever is shown in Scotland. So you might have, if Alba are showing it, or or Sky or something like that, they kind of get, or ESPN, they get the feed off them, and they keep saying here that they can only take whatever's been shown in Scotland. So you're kind of thankful that the fact that you can have this luxury of watching games now, because I've been here for almost 15 years, and that's where it's went from. But at the same time, if you're paying money for something, and as you're saying, and they're going to have a lot more, I guess, funding behind them, but you just think that this day and age, that with kind of the media that we have, and the internet, everything's getting faster, you would be able to get better quality pictures, and not having to pay a premium for it. If you're paying 130 American dollars for high definition, that sort of stuff, it's slightly different from us paying, would I pay, $30 Australian dollars a month, just to get sort of their equivalent of high definition. Which it is not. Trust me.
I mean, well, of course it's not, and they also, I mean, just doing back of a fag packet calculations, if 3,000 people are paying around an average of £20 a month, that's a budget of 720 grand a year. You know what I mean? And it's like, I mean, does this cover everybody's wages? Does the subscribers need to pay the wages of the people that are providing the service out of this, and so on and so forth? I don't know, but surely with that kind of amount of money, that it can be a far better product. But I suppose, unfortunately, there is definitely an attitude at Celtic that prevails quite often of, well, what's the point in us spending more money? What does it give us? We can go on about all day, but
I know. Let's move on.
I mean, let's move on to the game itself. So you did eventually see the game, Pat. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was kind of mixed about it. I know Lenny came out and said it's the first half is the best he's ever seen the team play, but I don't know. I just didn't kind of get that. I'll be honest with you. They played all right. Don't get me wrong. The first half was. It was the part was a field. Let's face it, there's no doubts about it. But I didn't see it as being the best. I think even the weekend or the game before, the Dundee United game, was probably better than a better performance than that. And I don't know if he's just trying to paper over it and just say because the effect was a draw, and we kind of come at the positives at the end of it. Like Motherwell dropped points, so we're an extra point ahead. So I don't know. I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of good chances for Hooper at the start. There was the second one I thought he should have put away. There was, first one was he did well, but the second one I thought he should have, beat the keeper from there, pretty much penalty spot. Not really under any pressure, so it should have been 2-3 goals up in the first half, I guess. But I still didn't think it was the best performance I've seen Neil Lennon's team play, if you know what I mean. So.
And before I go for your expert analysis, Josh, we've been joined by a good friend of the show, Mr. Kevin O'Neill. Kevin, are you there, mate? Kevin? Josh, have you added Kevin in and he's not speaking, or what?
Yeah, I've added Kevin in, but doesn't look like he's speaking.
Well, you'll need to cut him off then.
Call back in, Kev.
Kevin, you have to call in sober next time, okay? You ready?
No, it's his kids playing PlayStation. I'm giving him an excuse, but when I speak to Kev, that's kind of what I get as well. So get them off the PlayStation, Kev.
PlayStation or no, he's got to learn to speak. This is a talking show. Right, Josh. Josh, what was your... Oh, God. Christ, is everybody you speak to for Coatbridge these days, Pat?
Pretty much.
Aye. But Kevin's doing in Perth, isn't he?
He's in Mandurah, yeah, just south of Perth. So
I thought so. Aye.
They've got internet over there. I'm sure they have.
Well, aye. I'm hoping it's no, 2 cans and a piece of string. He's back now again. Are you there now, Kevin?
Can you hear me this time, Paul?
We can hear you loud and clear now. We were just talking about your alcohol habits and whether you had electricity down there and stuff.
It was definitely. It seemed to be working at my end. Obviously, no. I'll blame myself anyway. I've had a couple of little beers, boys. So.
You were right. He is an alcoholic, aye. So, Kevin, how you doing, my man? Anyway, we've not spoke to you for a long time. What's been happening doing Perth way?
Yeah, very good, Paul. I've been listening to the show again when it's been on, and Yeah, I've just missed out a couple of times and not been able to phone in for whatever reason. So no, I thought I'd join in tonight. And I must admit, I'm sorry to go back to the point you were discussing earlier on, lads, but it's not often I get a chance to gloat over Pat, but I was sitting watching the game on Setanta in glorious Setanta colour, and it was great. I didn't realise the trouble, obviously, that was with the Celtic TV feed. But it was only later on, I think, that I found out. So it's not often I get a chance to be watching a game there, maybe. But of course, it's not even on live back in Scotland. So when I found out that was going on, I was very pleased with myself. Because I've been annoyed with Setanta down here for a little while because the quality of the actual picture compared to even a standard definition picture on another channel it is really, really poor. I think they must take a feed from something themselves when they broadcast it. But I've recently subscribed to their Twitter account and I've been pestering them a bit for a while, just saying, will you ever broadcast in HD? They've not responded to that question yet, but they have followed me back, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, the game the other night, just to throw in my tuppence worth with that. I disagreed with what Pat was saying there. During the first half, I thought we were playing really well, considering it's one of these games. A lot of people are saying the league's won. We would all agree with that, of course. But again, it's one of those games you think, coming back off the Juve game and the disappointment, it's quite difficult to raise yourself for a game like that. Now, I thought in the first 10 minutes, we started the game as well as we've started any good game that we've played against any opposition. I thought we created plenty of chances. Hooper was unlucky, I think, rather than there were being bad misses. I think Manis did quite well, making a couple of good saves. But then it got to that stage, you thought, bloody hell, is this going to be one of these nights here? But then, of course, up pops Effie. We get the lead, and you think to yourself, right, okay, we've got our noses in front. It should be shooty in the second half and a comfortable win. But of course, it couldn't have been a different story. I think anybody watching that game would have thought to themselves that we were very, very lucky actually to come away with a point at the end of the day. You would never have thought you'd have said that based on the first half and the amount of chances we created. I counted about 5, 6, 7 chances. We could have easily taken them all. But it just shows you how it was your stereotypical game of two halves. And the decisions that were given to chop off the St Johnstone goals. I know I saw a few different things and different comments on Twitter and on Facebook and this kind of thing as to why they were disallowed. I think they were very, very soft decisions. And if it was the other way around, we would have been going mad about it. I think I think we were it should have been a 3-1 victory for St Johnstone, I reckon, at the end of the day. So to come away with a 1-1, it was very, very bizarre, I think, after the first half performance. But at the end of the day, what happened with Motherwell as well, we extended our lead at the top of the league, so we can't grumble with that.
Yeah, that's something I was just going to touch on there, Kevin, in relation to you, Josh. I mean, I was the same. I'm pretty much the same as Kevin. It was like good first half, and then it was an awful second half, and I can never put my finger on why. But then we come out the game, and Jackie and Sid's done us a favour and won doing it for Bath, and we're actually a point better off. So, I mean, this is a strange season, Josh, because there's been numerous games we've spoken about on this show and other shows that we've not been happy with performances and results, and yet we're sitting 19 points clear in February.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I think it's mainly because we've had people who have came into second place and then they've kind of went off form. So there's been a lot of teams around that area that have been coming on and off form. Obviously, Hibs early on and then Inverness, but they've started to drop off as well now, and Motherwell starting to go up, but they lost. So we've just simply been a bit more consistent than everyone else over the entire season, and just slowly opening a bigger and bigger gap.
Yeah. I mean, Pat, it's one of the things I think where after the 6-2 game on Saturday, we're all thinking, right, okay. I must admit, I wasn't overly confident going to Perth on Tuesday because I think they've got a decent side with a few good players that have given us bother in the past. But overall, I mean, are we going to see a lot more of these games as we get towards the end of the season?
Well, I think one of the things that was a big factor was the playing surface. I mean, I know it's the same for both, but
Yeah.
that's apart from Pitogia, it's probably about the worst I've seen in probably the SPL for a while. Like Pitogia, I do watch the other SPL games, and Pitogia just looks dreadful. But
yeah.
And like, I mean, like, I agree with, like, don't get me wrong, I was talking about the first half. Like, it was a good performance. It was a good first half. The point I was making was, I don't think it's the best first half. I don't think it's the best performance we've had since Lennon took over. It was a good, first half, but, I mean, but fair dues to St Johnstone.
Backtracking again.
Oh, you shut it. I mean, St Johnstone did well though. They changed it. They could easily just sat back and took that. Let's try and hold off and sneak a goal. But I think they did well and actually changed it and went for it a little bit. And in truth, if it's not a bit of a wake up call to other teams, then nothing more, because as Kev said, like the two offside goals. In fact, that linesman, from what I remember, there was a goal that Celtic got chopped off in the first half as well.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't see on the replay. It was something that it was either Matthews scored or Matthews crossed. I can't quite remember, but he got flagged. That same linesman flagged Celtic, and I reckon it was a goal as well. So I reckon he actually chopped off 3 goals for the whole game. But the two that St Johnstone got, honestly, I could not see one single player that was offside.
I mean,
not one.
The Fraser Wright goal. Now, this is the one thing, I don't know if you have caught this doing in Australia, but the one thing this has been explained about is that what effectively the linesman did was flag immediately, because the 2 players were standing offside at the free kick, and then didn't move back into an onside position before the ball was kicked. But then Fraser Wright, effectively the guy who was in front of him, I think the linesman mistook him as the goal scorer because they were standing so close to each other. And it's a really, I mean, I think there's a lot of grey area, to extend it a wee bit. There's a lot of grey areas in football. That's one of them. Another one is, I mean, this seems to be an epidemic now, and it happened again on Tuesday, is that the handballs and the penalties that people are getting or not getting this seems to be happening every single week now, where crosses are coming in and people are handling it and so on, and then 1 minute you get a penalty, next week you didn't get a penalty, and so on and so on and so on. We've obviously seen on Saturday against Dundee United one of the worst penalty decisions that's probably ever been made in the history of football. Where Bobby Madden was the only guy in the ground that's seen a penalty. But it's kind of infuriating for the fans to see these kind of decisions, and it's good to hear people saying, we're not just saying, it's all about Celtic, because people, I think, as Kevin said there, the vast majority of people that I've spoke to or read online or whatever said, no, they were 2 perfectly good goals for St Johnstone, So, no, it wasn't. It was probably the pivotal kind of gamey 2 halves on Tuesday, and we're probably glad to come out at a point better off given the second half performance. But Kevin, I'm glad you're phoned in here, because we've got a bit of conundrum on this show, and I feel that you're one of the men that could help solve this. We're looking for a new name for this show.
Don't build me up now, Paul.
Well, Pat off air says it's either Kevin or nobody. So we're looking for a new name for this show, right? We're looking to break the Homeboys connection and make it a standalone show that appeals to people in Australia and New Zealand, the Southern Hemisphere, and so on and so forth. We've obviously got Pat there, who basically is Mr. Australia. I think that's the only person he answers. Yeah, I mean, the only person he even answers to is Julia Gillard. So we need a name that will encompass what we're trying to do here. Any thoughts?
Well, you know what? I think you have. You've given me some inspiration there, and I think, and this isn't rehearsed. You can guarantee that. But I think, just with what you've said there, Paul, I think it should be called the Pat Close Show.
You're sacked, boy. That's ridiculous. That is piss poor.
But this is something we want to keep percolating over the show. We're going to go into different issues and stuff. We've got a big issue going to come up very shortly. But just keep in your minds, guys, we're needing a name for this show by the end of this show. And whatever you pick, that's what's going to be the name. And it's not going to be picked by me or Josh. It's going to be picked by our friends in the Southern Hemisphere. But
God help us. I hope there's some suggestions come in.
Well, I tell you, it's either that or the next guy we're going to is like Barry Humphries. So we need to get, but on a more serious note though, and this is something that's close to my heart. I've done a blog about it this morning, Kevin, Pat, I don't know if you've seen it, but Josh, The recent survey has shown that Celtic Park is now the most expensive match day experience in Scotland. It was second last season to Hibs. Now it's the most expensive. Now, when I say match day experience, this is what was I mean. I'm talking about a basic match ticket, a match programme, and food and drink in the ground. This is averaging out, believe it or not, in terms of your wee bit of travel as well. And this is a low point. It's £68 per game. Okay, which is far and away the most expensive. Now, on the other side of that spectrum, there was a study this week that said that extreme poverty in the East End of Glasgow amongst children is now at 43%, which is up there with the highest in Europe, along with West Belfast and parts of Manchester, right? So, taking an aside of the fact that Britain's one of the most wealthy countries in the world and this has gone on, the question I'm putting out to all of you is, does there need to be a rethink at Celtic Park when you look at this area the ground's in and the poverty people are going through and in terms of the prices they're charging? And I'll ask you first, Pat.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think yes. I think it probably goes beyond even just Celtic, though. I think, a lot of countries, and you just, take out the factor of, the poverty and stuff like that. Things are hard. They have been, since I was a kid in Scotland and East End of Glasgow. So you take that, if you're just talking about, just for entertainment, for normal Joe Punter, I guess, then yeah, I think it needs a rethink across the board. And I mean, everyone talks about the Germany thing, and I mean, if that's not a great model to go with, a bigger country and all that sort of stuff, better facilities and stuff. But if you can get more people getting through the gates and getting more people interested in it, I think it sets you up for the future. And it'll take a generation to get there, pretty much. But I think it just needs a big rethink from start to finish. And I mean, I still go through the thing of comparing Australia to Scotland, and I look at stuff here. And don't get me wrong, food is expensive here when you go to the footy, when AFL type footy. But at the same time, compared to what you pay in Glasgow, it's night and day. Even entry for a game, if I go to St Kilda match, I see with a few Celtic sport mates actually, and we spend, what do I spend? About $170 a year for a season ticket. Mm-hmm. And you compare that to the £400 or £500 that you guys are paying. So don't get me wrong, it's a nice stadium and stuff like that, and it's. But I mean, AFL seems to be thriving. It's just they're going from strength to strength and signing these big television deals and stuff like that. So, although there is stuff in the paper today talking about they're going to put some sort of football tax on supporters, so maybe my timing's all wrong on it. But yeah,
what do you mean by that, Pat? What do you mean by football tax? How's that going to manifest?
In truth, I only caught a bit of it in the newspaper today at work. I was pretty busy, so it was really just a headline. But what it looks as if they're doing is they're essentially going to try and make they call it the kind of blockbuster games here, so the real big games, the MCG 100,000 people games. They're trying to make those tickets a bit more expensive, pretty much to try and get more money coming in. So you might have like St Kilda, the team AFL aren't like one of the top teams, so we might play Gold Coast, who are like one of the new teams in the league, and there could only be 20,000 people at the game. It's not going to be a massive crowd, but the following night at the same stadium, you might have, Carlton playing Essendon, and it'll be a 55, an indoor stadium we have in Melbourne, it's like 55,000 or something. So there might be a thought of taxing them more, like not taxing them, they're calling it a football tax, but actually charging more than what I'd paid the previous night, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So they're actually looking at variable ticketing prices, whereas, and Australians hate that. Australians, what they want to know, when I walk up to that stadium, it's going to cost me $25 for a ticket, and it doesn't matter what game I'm going to play. They've never had that here, and it's got to be a massive cultural change for them to do that. But so I mean, it's happening sort of around the world, and I mean, one of the things here in Australia you're lucky with is you can actually take food into the stadium. Now, I don't know if it's still the same, but I remember before I left, you weren't allowed to take even a plastic bottle into Parkhead. Is that still the same?
Well, that was what I was under the impression, Pat. But Peter Lawwell said at the last AGM that was absolute nonsense. You could take as much food and drinking as you wanted, which stunned me, given that I get basically stopped and searched at every single game. And the first question the person who searched me is, do you have any bottles or cans on you? So I don't know
Yeah,
how the hell you're
yeah.
supposed to transport liquid without a bottle or a can.
Yeah, I mean, cans, I can kind of get the point of that. I mean, that was happening when I was going to games and I was a very young lad. They'd have a bin there. You'd a can of brew and you can't take it in with you. But over here, I mean, I kid you not, people take picnics to games here, and I don't mean that lightly. They are taking picnic baskets with sandwiches and flasks and actually remember a game long after I came here. I was down in Geelong. For any sort of Geelong listeners, Chris Coleman, I think if you're listening, they went to Cardinia Park to watch St Kilda playing down there, and I actually was going through the crowd. I got there a little bit late when I was going through the crowd and literally tripped over somebody on a picnic blanket, sitting down, watching the game on a picnic blanket, and they had the whole thing like a big esky, all this stuff out. It was just, when you come from Scotland, you just go, what the hell is this all about? But that's the South Australian culture. Now, I don't know. I don't think Peter Law can say what he wants. I don't think that's allowed.
Yeah.
At Parkhead. So, but even things like that makes a difference. If you can take a packet of crisps in you bought at Safeway, and it might cost you like $1, as opposed to getting to Parkhead and paying so I'm talking Australian here, but it might cost you, I don't know, 50, however much it is, 50 pence for a packet of crisps, and then you walk into Parkhead and you're paying £5 for the same thing. To people like us, that's a massive difference, just for a packet of crisps, So yeah, I think it does need a rethink, and I like the guys, the Maileys boys guys that did the whole catering thing as well. So hopefully something comes out of that, like not even just better quality, but better pricing, better quality, for better value for money, essentially.
We've been joined by Jim Rennicks. Jim, you've been listening to that debate there?
I just caught the bit you were talking about your blog earlier on, Paul. I had a read at that, and I totally agree with everything you said on it, to be honest with you, mate.
That's what we're talking about now, Jim. The disparity between the fact that there's 43% child poverty in the east end of Glasgow and we're the highest to get in Scotland. I mean, what's your overall view of that? Do you think there needs to be a rethink by Celtic?
Oh, without a doubt. As I said, probably said it before on here, I'm from Denniston, so I was only a walk away from going to Celtic Park, which me and my mates done every week. And we always got a lift over the turnstile, Paul. Yeah. Which you get your pocket money and you would save that and you would get a lift over. Which was always good, and there was loads of kids there. I don't know if there's loads of kids that go any longer. Would that be?
Yeah, I think. Well, one of the issues is mentioned in that blog, not to blow my own trumpet, but is that at the start of the season they had the £50 kid season tickets, which was a real success, really boosted numbers. And then when the Mankey Mob went bust, and they were no longer going to be part of the SPL, obviously, kids who had paid the extra, which was £42 per game, to watch the games versus Rangers, for repatriation of that, were basically given a £30 voucher from the Celtic shop that you had to use within 2 weeks. In fact, Gary McGeady from Belfast actually just tweeted us in and said that he was on holiday when he got sent the voucher, and so by the time he got back, the voucher had expired. So they were out of pocket. And then the kids who had paid £50 for the season ticket were told, for the team that replaced the Mankey Mob, i.e. Dundee, who we play on Sunday, of course, and we'll come on to that later, they would have to pay to get into that game, despite being a season ticket holder, which led to the lowest, I believe, attendance this season at Celtic Park for an SPL game was against Dundee in the first game. The next lowest, and probably the lowest, will be the game on Sunday, where there'll be even less people there, because thousands of people refuse to pay to get in. And you just kind of think to yourself, people have been tweeting us saying, why don't Celtic just let kids in free on Sunday? Or something like that. I mean, what's your take, Kevin?
I guess there's a lot of aspects to it, Paul. And in the main, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think for games like that, the ones you've described just there about the two Dundee games, now, I suppose you can understand the way that materialised, but for Celtic not to be able to organise something relatively quickly, I'm talking about a couple of weeks in the run-up to a match, they must be able to gauge this game that's coming up on... It's Sunday this weekend, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, this game that's coming up on Sunday, I mean, they must be able to look at that historical data for that last game. And they must be able to say, right, look, just as you've alluded to there, Paul, this is what happened last time round. Whether they would let kids in free, but, a token gesture, £2 for kids, £5 for adults. Now, okay, you're going to maybe have your majority of season ticket holders been a little bit miffed by that whole thing because they've all shelled out, a lot of money for that particular game. But the thing that's most important is getting full stadiums, encouraging more people to come along to the games. The stuff that Pat was talking about earlier on there as well about how it happens in Australia. Every single sporting event you go to here is value for money, in my opinion. Anything that I've been to, whether it's a football match, I think when I went to the Perth Glory Celtic game here a couple of years ago, I think it was $10 to get into that game. Now, somebody might correct me there, but it was ridiculously cheap. Now, I mean, $10, that's about, what, £6.50, something like that.
Jesus.
I mean, it's farcical. And now, when you're saying that the match day experience, okay, you get your ticket, you get a bit of travel involved there, you've got a little bit of food if you need it, your match day programme or whatever. And what was it you said it was, Paul, for the average
£68
cost?
£68 per game.
£68. Now, to any Aussies listening to that, we're talking there about $130,
yeah.
round about that, some there or thereabouts. Now, when you compare that to any sporting event here, if you go into the horse racing, if you go to, as Pat said, the AFL, you might go to some local sporting events. I mean, people would laugh at that if that's what they expected to pay for it. So
can I cut in there, Kevin?
Of course,
Go
Jim,
ahead,
yeah.
Jim.
Right, I go to see the Brisbane Broncos a few times. I mean, that's costing me and my boy $60 to go to that, and it's $7 for a beer once you're in there. It ain't a cheap sport in Queensland, mate. I can assure you that.
Okay,
yeah. There's nothing cheap here, nothing.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. At the Champions League game against Juventus, there was, what always happens in the Champions League games is, the people you sit around week in, week out suddenly all disappear, and all these other people just appear for this game. And there was a guy in there with his 4 kids. He had 4 laddies with him that were off about 15 down to about 8-year-old, right? Something like that. And he was like giving it the big shot. What you want to drink and this kind of thing? And he went back and he said to him, "What do you want?" And he said, a hot dog and a drink. Okay. He comes back with 4 hot dogs and 4 drinks, and that cost him just below £30. £30.
That's ridiculous.
Now, the guy, he would in the parlance of our time, I would call the guy a kind of big shot type guy, But I've got 2 kids. If I take my 2 kids to the games, it's just beyond belief. I mean, my eldest son's almost 12 now, and even he says to me, "Dad, didn't buy me the programme, it's not worth it." Even he's starting to see this thing, mate. But Josh, I mean, you're a relatively young guy from Scotland. I mean, I hope I'm not talking out of turn here, but you're on a pretty limited budget, like most of us. What would entice you to go to more games, particularly at Celtic Park?
Well, I'd say the main thing that'll put me off, to be honest, is just the cost. It's just a simple fact that I can't actually feel afford to go to that many games. If I wanted to buy a season ticket, I need to take out a loan, and I'm not a guy that likes to take on debt, stuff like that. So if I just buy tickets and go to each game, you're saying yourself £68. But when I go, I don't really buy the food like that. So even if I try and save all my costs and that, I'm still looking at about £40.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money to shell out.
I mean, was there anything to try and extend the point, specifically to you, because obviously a different scenario in Australia and New Zealand, places like that? What would entice you to buy a season ticket?
Well, it's hard to say. Also,
Would it need to be cheaper? Would it need to be more payment options? Would you need to get more value for money?
The most obvious thing would be cheaper, but I can't really see Celtic ever kind of doing that. I'd say maybe even just some sort of small entitlements. Like you go to the game and you get maybe free food once a month. Not even free, but discounted 20% off.
I'm not sure that'd be an entitlement with the food that you could actually taste there, but moving swiftly on. So, Jim, another thing we need to bring you on, and I'm glad you phoned in here because you're going to be part of what's called the think tank of this show. We're looking for we're looking for a new name for this show to stand alone and appeal to your Australian and your New Zealand listeners and your Southern Hemisphere listeners. So at the end of the show, we're going to ask Pat, Kevin, and yourself, Jim, to come up with a name for this show. And whatever the consensus agrees on between the three of you, then that's what the name of the show's going to be. So put your thinking cap on for the next, 20 minutes or so.
I'll try, mate. I'll try. I'm still trying to pack. I'm going away on Sundays, but I'm still trying to pack here. I'll listen on, but.
So that's how you can afford all these big Brisbane games and all that. Plenty money for holidays and stuff.
No, I'm not
no pressure, Jim.
What's up, pal? I'm saying nothing.
We'll move on. We'll come back to that because that'll take up the end of our show. And we've got a wee tribute at the end of our show to a guy who lost his life 25 years ago yesterday. More on that later. So we're looking forward to Dundee on Sunday, despite the fact that it appears nobody's gone to it. I'll certainly be there. Freezing my arse off and my name mates as usual. But Neil Lennon's come out today and said we're going to rotate the squad. I'll throw the question out to Jim first. Jim, what kind of players would you like to see involved in this game on Sunday?
I like flair players, Paul, and I like the boy Rogic. And I think I don't know if I said it before, but I think he's a kind of player that can get a ball, he can move forward, and he can pass it. I think the defence is all over the place. We were watching that game the other day. Every ball that got flung into that middle in the second half, it was a disaster, really, wasn't it? The big boy Fergio, what's happened to him? Is he not getting a game? Maybe you can answer that better than me, mate.
I mean, it's I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the last game we saw, real squad rotation was obviously up at Inverness. Which was a game that, despite an early start, we won at a canter. And if you look at the performances in that game, Rogic was immense, Rogner was immense, Gershon was immense, people like that. It's difficult to kind of gauge the manager's thinking because the first thing I thought on Tuesday when I saw the team lineup was nae Stokes. Now, the last time I remember this happening with the Hooper and Stokes partnership getting broken up was we won 9-0 against Aberdeen.
And we get beat by Hearts, is that right?
Exactly, and we go out to Tynecastle, we shifted the team about and we got beat 2-0 convincingly. So it's difficult to kind of imagine what's going on, but it's the squad rotation. I mean, what's your take, Kevin? I mean, do you want to see more players coming in now, particularly on Sunday?
I suppose, given we've got the Juve game coming up, and that one will take care of itself, I suppose, but I can understand why Lennon's wanting to try to rest some I guess bigger players or regular players and make a few changes again. Like you had said there, I was very surprised that Stokes didn't get a start against St Johnstone, given his performance and especially his first goal he scored against United. I think I certainly had started kind of forgetting that we had Anthony Stokes because he'd been out for so long. But I think since he has come back, he's shown little touches of what I think a lot of us know he is definitely capable of doing. The guy's actually quite a good footballer. He's got good vision. He can pick a pass, the guy, and I think his original partnership, himself and Hooper, you can just see it on their faces when they're playing in a game. They know each other's game. They get on well, and they seem to know how to play together as a good partnership up front. So I was very surprised that they didn't start with him against St Johnstone. So I would be also very surprised if they didn't start with him against Dundee. But like Jim was saying there as well, and I'm sure Pat would agree, we're maybe biased down in Oz here, guys, but I'd love to see Tom Rogic get a start. Again, the type of team that he went with up in Cali, it might not be too far away from that he decides to go with, Lennon decides to go with on Sunday. But yeah, I'd love to see Rogic get involved there. Because I think he has, hopefully people saw that the guy has got a bit of talent in that game. He's certainly not shy in picking the ball up and having a look up, and if there's space in front of him, trying to drive forward. Hopefully people picked that up from that one game that we've seen of him. But yeah, I'd love to see him starting, and it'd be a home debut, things like that as well, for those reasons as well, I guess. But I'd be confident even if he does rotate the squad, make a few changes, I'd be confident with the bloody 15,000 or whatever we'll have there on Sunday that we should get a decent performance and result.
Yeah, I mean, I think on Rogic, when you're playing away from home and you're a goal doing against a team that's doing well and they've got a packed defence, there's a number of ways you can come back at them. You can try and pass your way round them. You can try and launch a ball at the middle of their defence and hope something comes off. Or you can do what Tom Rogic did, which is completely tear their defence to shreds by taking out 3 players. And, you know, it's kind of people looked at that here and thought, who's he like? And he reminds me like somebody like Jack Wilshere at Arsenal, where he's got that directness. He can just go past players with a common kind of cause in his mind to bring somebody into the game or score himself. And he's, I think what is the thing that's surprised perhaps a lot of Celtic supporters is his stature. You know, he's a tall guy and he's a big guy. You know what I mean? And that'll stand him in good stead because, as you're all fully aware, in Scotland, you know, you'll get kicked to death for the first couple of years of your career to see if you fancy it or not. And if you can survive that, you'll go on to become a really good football player. But Pat, obviously, you're Tom Rogic's father. I mean, how are you seeing his progress so far?
Well, I mean, we we spoke about it in the last podcast. I think it was Stephen asked me, you know, what sort of player is he? And I think the way I'd kind of explained it is pretty much the performance he put on against Inverness. It was he gets the ball, he runs it, guys, he's direct, and he can pick a pass. I think you got to bear in mind the guy's not even fully fit yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he's fully fit, and especially especially over the close season, he probably put on a bit of bulk, you know, a bit of kind of more upper body strength, that sort of thing as well. He's a very young. He's only 19, 20 years old. So, you know, there's good things to come from it, and I hope he does get a run out on Saturday. In fact, for the rest of the season. As the guys just said, we are obviously very biased towards someone like him doing well because it's good for us. It's really good PR for us down here. As hard as it has been a Celtic fan in Australia, if you've got someone like that, and he does get mentioned as Kevin's mates, the guys that do the Perth Glory, they do like a podcast as well called the Glory Gorillas. It's pretty entertaining stuff. So it's all about A-League stuff. So it's not saying it's the sort of thing that Scottish people would listen to that much, but for us down here, it's a good listen. And they were talking about him again. So the guy, I think he's a star in the making. But for Sunday, I'm not sure there'll be the same sort of sweeping changes as what he did at Inverness, but I wouldn't be surprised because we've got Motherwell coming up on the Wednesday as well. So it's not, you know, there's a couple of games nearby, and then we've got is it St Mirren in the Cup following week again? Is that the following week? Is it?
Yeah.
And then the Juve game coming up. So yeah.
I mean, it's a hell of a schedule considering what we've just came through the now. Play Dundee on Sunday, Motherwell on Wednesday, St Mirren early doors on Saturday, Juventus. Obviously that'll be a canter for us. And then we go to Ross County on the Saturday morning again. So it's kind of like if this is when you need your squad rotation, you know. And you know, Rogic. I mean, I don't think you need to apologise for being biased towards Rogic because I think it's beneficial for everybody in the club. You know what I mean? If we can, you know, have a good player, fantastic. And the only way we'll get good brand exposure in Australia is if Tom Rogic's playing well and scoring goals for Celtic. So it's a win-win for everybody.
And look, in truth, it was all over. It's on Twitter and stuff like that during the Inverness game. Not you. It's probably guys that you don't follow, but I follow a lot of sort of Australian kind of football guys, and there was tons of it. You know, just guys saying like, you know, Roger, he's on, he's playing from the start, and there was really genuine sort of excitement, interest, and people want him to do well. Now there are a couple of kind of pundits who are just, in truth, are just wankers in Australia. Is
that Craig Foster we're talking here, Pat?
Let's nail on the head. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Some of this stuff. He's really scathing of Scottish football as a whole, and we seem to think he's certainly not a Celtic fan, but I just think he's not a Scottish football fan as a whole. But in Les Murray as well, you'd think better of. Les Murray is kind of really highly regarded over here as like a football pundit. You know, he's been on the TV ever since I've been here. But even he was very sort of critical towards him going to Celtic as well, and it's just, I hope these guys kind of wake up. But and look, I went through just again a couple of little things about Dundee for the game, and like if you're not going to rotate the team and put in not a reserve team, but certainly guys on the fringe, they've scored one goal in 2013. They've let in 6. They haven't won since November when they beat Hibs 3-1, and they're 15 points behind St Mirren in 11th spot.
Yeah.
So they're basically, and they've just sacked their manager. I mean, they could beat with Aberdeen last Saturday. I think Niall McGinn scored that goal.
Yeah.
It was a cracking goal, actually, to be fair. But But they actually had a couple of, and I was interested in chatting before about the handballs and stuff. Like they had pretty much 2 stone walls. They had 2 stone. I'm talking like blatant handballs in the box. In fact, one of them Aberdeen broke away and scored their goal. So so they're. I mean, I'm not saying they're on form or that, but they certainly had a couple of. They seem like a kind of big and physical team to me, but that's maybe what they'll try and do against us. But you know, a team that hasn't won since November, they've only scored 1 goal in 6-7 games. They should be there for the taking. And they're also looking at Jimmy Collarwood for their manager. So yeah.
His friends in the media are doing their damnedest to get him that job. But there was the big story up here yesterday when I didn't even realise Barry Smith had gone till 4 or 5 hours after it happened. Unbelievable decision considering the guy went in with a first division squad to an SPL season. But apparently the remit of the guy coming in, whether that's Jimmy Calderwood or whoever, is to keep Dundee in the SPL. So I can only assume that they're trying to find a manager who's going to also influence SPL reconstruction. Because I just cannot see how on earth Dundee are supposed to be in the SPL next season. Whether it's Jimmy Calderwood, Jimmy Page or Jim Rennox. It's absolutely classical.
Actually, I'll put a name out there. I just reckon someone like Paul Hartley would do well with them. Seems to have done well. So I reckon he'd be at least you'd like to think they're at least considering it. He's done pretty well with Alloa. Was it last year they won the 3rd division, and they're certainly top or near the top in 2nd division now. So I think
only second to.
But they not got horse 7-0 with the Huns.
Aye, there is that. I also must tell this Paul Hartley story. On the first day he arrived at Alloa and he turned up in a sports car in a pinstripe suit, and when he walked out, he had a big notice on his car written by the players that says, "Remember, this is fucking Alloa, you're it." So, so I thought that was good. But before we go into the kind of naming of the show and all that kind of thing, have any of your guys, I'm speaking specifically to Pat, Jim and Kevin here, you got any announcements, any things going on with your clubs, anything coming up, anything like that?
I guess I'll go first, Paul, if that's all right. I'm still trying to set up a Mandurah Celtic supporters club. Now, I have had a few conversations with a couple of guys. There's a fella, I don't know if I should give him a mention or not, in case he's quite shy, I think, and I always encourage him to phone in here. Dennis Doherty. I enjoy a few pints with Dennis on the odd occasion, but I think Dennis is going to step up to the mark and help me establish this thing. So if there's anybody out there in I guess the southern Perth area, we've of course got our friends at the Perth CSC that run out of Rosie O'Grady's, Brian Doherty, etc. up there. But if there's anybody in the kind of southern Perth area, round about Mandurah, Rockingham, that kind of area, please get in touch. You can follow me on Twitter or get in touch with me on Twitter at KJPO'Neill72. I'd like to hear from you. And there's quite a few of us that are interested in it. I just really need to get my finger out, to be honest, and do something about it. But a little plug for that, if that's okay, Paul.
No problem at all, Kevin. That's why we're here. What about yourself, Jim? Anything you want to shout out?
I don't really remember any clubs here at all, Paul. It's kind of far spread where I am, mate. And over the last couple of months, I've been working away quite a bit as well. So I'm just recording games and watching them when I get home. So I can't really add anything to any kind of supporters clubs, to be honest with you, mate. Sorry about that.
No problem. No, not at all. Pat?
Just anyone passing through Melbourne and the Melbourne area, Jockstein Celtic Supporters Club. We are obviously not showing many games at the moment because there's not many on, but at reasonable times for us anyway. Just JSCSC Melbourne, or at JSCSC Melbourne. There's a Twitter feed. There's a Facebook page as well, so if you go in there and just search for, I think it's Celtic Supporters Melbourne or something like that. I can't remember the exact term, but we catch up normally the first Friday of every month for a few beers and stuff. So, probably just contact the supporters club one, and we'll point in the right direction. So, I'd like to say, if hopefully he's listening, there's Martin from Scotstoun who came in and joined us a couple of weeks ago. We're having a few beers. Only half a dozen of us there turned up that night, unfortunately. But it was good banter. So having a chat to him. So he's one of the regular listeners to Homeboys and stuff. So Graham Marty Boy.
And I'm sure anybody that goes in there, Pat, Sean Fitzgerald will buy them drink all night.
And not in your wildest, I'll say. Yeah. Although Sean, we did put in a bit of an effort in for the UV game. We went and got square sausage and stuff like that, and the bar was open at, oh geez, I don't know how people can do it, but yeah, the bar was open at 6:45 in the morning. So people were knocking back a few pints and stuff. So not quite for me, but yeah. It's
Sean looked after me very well when I was over in Melbourne a couple of years ago. I wouldn't have a word said against him, man. I think he got me a couple of beers that night.
Yeah, he's a good man, Sean. So we'll run around the night before trying to get bread rolls. It was quite hilarious. Phone calls going on. Can anybody get to Safeway to get bread rolls for these square sausage? So it was yeah, I know the things you have to do for supporters clubs. But we had one Juventus supporter in the whole pub. There was about 50 of us and one Juventus supporter. So I think the poor guy, when they scored the first goal and let this yes out, it was like everyone, there was with daggers. He didn't say another word, but no, he was alright. He was a nice guy. So yeah,
brilliant.
Right.
So before we go out on a more serious matter, the gauntlet has been thrown down to three. Myself and Josh are taking no part in this. Pat, Kevin, and Jim. We need a name for the show, a standalone name that will become the name for the rest of eternity. In the show, it will be a Twitter feed will be set up by Pat with this name and all that kind of thing. We're trying to rebrand the show so we can appeal more to a Southern Hemisphere audience, Australia, New Zealand, people like that. So if anybody has any thoughts, suggestions, now is your platform.
Tumbleweeds. There you go.
I think, Paul, if you're trying to appeal to an Antipodean audience or an Aussie audience, skimpies are something that appeals to a lot of people down under here. Skimpies are girls that would be working behind a bar with not much on, basically. But I don't think we could go there with the naming convention for that show. But that would appeal to a lot
Don't be
of
saying
listeners.
that, Kevin. I'm heading up to the mines at the weekend, mate. My wife might be listening to this, so just keep that quiet.
Sorry to land you in it, Jim.
Something Southern Cross related, maybe we could do.
Yep.
That might. Southern Cross is very kind of popular. I don't know, some Southern Cross, Eureka, maybe. Something to do with Eureka Stockade, something like that. But again, that's very Australian. If you're trying to, I think we want to try and encompass everything. We want to try and get the New Zealand guys involved as well. So I'm putting a message out there to guys like Kevin Everett and Mick Marr over at Auckland CSC. If you guys are still around and involved with supporters clubs, get back in touch with them. I last spoke to them 7-8 years ago. We want to try and get everybody involved. Mm-hmm. The whole idea, again, Paul will probably say his piece on this, but the whole idea, we started this thing up, and it kind of started off with a few emails to our good friend David Harper. He kindly set all this thing up. The whole idea was that Paul would come on with Josh and effectively hand it over to the Australian supporters. So that's kind of what we're asking people to do, is I can't do it on my own. I don't think I could host a show. I don't have that sort of, I can't talk shite like Paul does. I can't. I don't want to do it. All right, I couldn't do it. But what I mean. We need people involved. So we're putting an appeal out there to anyone Australia wide. I've tried to get in touch with the Papua New Guinea guys. If any guys over there listen, check your email, because there's going to be 1 or 2 emails from me. Just anybody in this region. Japan. I know there's Tokyo CSC. They're in the same sort of time zone as us. Singapore guys. There's going to be a lot encompassing this sort of region of the world. So. Anybody, we just want people to get involved, and this is your show. This is your soapbox. So come and join us. It's fun. I had some comments from people today saying they get a bit nervous, they're a bit unsure about calling in and stuff like that. And I just should say that when I first sort of called up, and I actually remember messaging, I think it was Harper at the time, I'm going to call in, because I was that nervous doing it. But honestly, you can speak to Kevin, you can speak to Jim. Once you're on here, it's just like sitting in the pub having a couple of beers with your mates. It really feels like that. And it's not just, I'm not just saying that, that's genuinely what it feels like.
I'm sitting in the pub. I'm sitting in the pub having a couple of beers with my mates. Just so happens you're on in the background.
I'd say that we've got a good suggestion in from Chris. Half the World Away podcast. Open every show with Oasis.
That's quite good. That.
That's quite.
Half the World Away. I quite like it.
Yep.
Does Chris get a prize for this, Paul?
Yes, he does. He gets.
I think he should.
He gets a night with Sean Fitzgerald.
I'll tell you what. If whoever gets the right one, I will find one of our supporters club's pin badges, which are like hen's teeth. I will find one of them and I'll make sure it gets sent over to whoever picks the right one. But that's got to be up there, I've got to say.
Well, what about this, right? We're looking to run this show every week to get a good punt, right, and get it going and stuff like that. So we'll be back next Friday. What about if we say we'll have a name by next Friday, and if people want to tweet in, in fact, if they tweet, Pat, what's your Twitter handle again? At Melbourne Tim.
Melbourne_Tim. I need to try and change it.
If you tweet Pat at Melbourne_Tim, any suggestions and names, then by next Friday we'll have it done, and that's when we'll start the Twitter feed and all that kind of thing. And so we can put less pressure on, and Jim can go on his holiday and he can think about it, and Kevin.
I'm not going on holiday, Paul. I'm going to work, mate. I'm going to work.
Oh, you're going to work?
I'm going on holiday. Aye.
You're going to go and pay for holidays, then? That's what you're doing.
No, I'm going to an open mine, mate, up in Western Queensland somewhere. It's still going to be a holiday. It's got nice bars in it, but in good food.
Oh, for Christ's sake, man! It sounds like a resort. But aye, so that's what we'll do. We'll have everything up and running by next week. We'll have a name, we'll have a new Twitter feed, we'll be standing alone, and we'll hopefully... And the other thing that Pat didn't mention is the fact that, as I say, this show was always intended to be a handover show, that me and Josh would try and help with and half at the start, and stuff like that, and that we'll, hand over. So we're looking for somebody to come on board with Pat as well, as an Australian type host. Somebody that's doing there, it doesn't have to be Australian, but somebody who's doing there in Australia, New Zealand, somewhere like that. So if you've ever wanted to, do this kind of thing, it's very simple. We can tell you all you need to do in about 5 minutes. And we'd be looking to hand over sometime just after Easter, maybe the start of April, something like that. So get a good batter for a good 6-7 week period, and hopefully build it up. And while we're on the subject, we should also thank Stephen Monaghan, who's no longer with the show. He's taking a wee break and stuff. And for his immense contribution to the show and all that, and the laughs and the mellow birds and the cash and carry that he provided, every time he was on and stuff like that. So Stephen, if you're listening, good luck, pal, and we'll speak to you in the future. But on that note, on an even more serious note, I'd like to thank everybody for listening, and great callers and great banter today and stuff like that. We're going to play out with a song that's dedicated to a young man who was a Celtic supporter and who was killed 25 years ago yesterday. And we were going to dedicate the show to him, and we hope that, and I should also say this was at the request of Pat, which was a really good shout, and that we hope that wherever you are, pal, that you can be listening in, and we'll speak to everybody next week. Hail, hail, guys.
Hail, hail. Well, mate.
It was on a Sunday evening, the sun shone in the sky, as he walked on his way to the Gaelic ground, never thinking he was going to die. As he crossed the checkpoint, the sound of gunfire came, as the news spread through the border town, Aidan McInnesby was slain. Oh, why did you do it? Have you not the guts to say? You say it was an accident, or even a ricochet, but like Loco and Gibraltar, your eyes are well renowned. You murdered Aidan McInnesby on his way to the Gaelic ground. For years he was harassed by the forces of the crown, as he went to work each morning and from his native town. The soldiers swore they'd get him for reasons no one could say, and sure enough they murdered him in cold blood that sunny day. not the guts to say? You say it was an accident, or even a ricochet. But like Rocco and Gibraltar, your eyes are well renowned. You murdered Aidan McAnespy on his way to the Gaelic ground. To say it was an accident was the greatest crime of all. To his heart-broken family, it was the worst that can befall. A cross that marks the lonely spot where Aidan he was shot down. As he walked that Sunday evening on his way to the Gaelic ground. Sing it with us. Oh, why did you do it? Have you not the guts to say? You say it was an accident, or even a ricochet. But like Rocco and Gibraltar, your eyes are well renowned. You murdered Aidan McAnespy on his way to the Gaelic ground. You say it was an accident, or even a ricochet. But like Rocco and Gibraltar, your lies are well renowned. You murdered Aidan McAnespy on his way to the Gaelic ground. Aidan's life had ended. It was time for Judgment Day. A soldier jumped out from the tower, then the coward, he slipped away. God's curse on you, England, for this cruelty that you have done. But God will have the final say when your day of judgment comes. Oh, why did you do it? Have you not the guts to say? You say it was an accident, or even a ricochet. But like Rocco and Gibraltar, your eyes are well renowned. You murdered Aidan McAnespy on his way to the Gaelic ground. Yes, you murdered young Aidan McAnespy on his way to the Gaelic